Welcome to The Explainer. You know what? We're going to skip the long intro today and jump right into an absolutely unprecedented moment in football history. We are talking about Arsenal's historic million fans celebration. Okay, let's dive right into this. 1 million people. Just take a second to wrap your head around that number. Up to 1 million fans literally flooding the streets of Islington. And look, this wasn't just a big crowd. This jaw-dropping turnout is officially the largest championship trophy parade ever recorded in the history of the Premier League. No club, no title, literally no occasion has ever brought this many people onto English streets for a single football celebration. But to really grasp why this happened, we gotta look at what went down the day before. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer emotional whiplash of the weekend. It's staggering. Just 18 hours before this record-breaking party, on Saturday, May 30th, Arsenal's players were standing on the pitch in Budapest at the Puskás Arena, heads bowed, hearts absolutely broken. They just played 120 incredibly tense minutes, only to lose the Champions League final in a devastating penalty shootout to PSG after Gabriel's penalty got saved. The dream of a historic domestic and European double, it just evaporated right there. And yet, Sunday, May 31st rolls around, and instead of mourning, we get this unbelievable, euphoria-soaked spectacle back in North London. So that brings us to the ultimate paradox, doesn't it? Why are 1 million people out there celebrating like they conquered the world less than 24 hours after losing a major European final? It seems completely counterintuitive. But to really understand the massive scale of this Sunday turnout, we have to look past the Saturday heartbreak. We need to dig deep into the context of the club's struggles over the past 2 decades. To figure out why those streets were overflowing, we gotta go back. This is the story of a very painful 22-year drought. Arsenal's last Premier League title happened all the way back in 2004. Between that ultimate high and the euphoria of 2026, you've got over 2 decades packed with managerial changes, financial restructuring, heartbreaking near misses, and just profound frustration for the fans. They finally found their compass again when Mikel Arteta took charge in late 2019. That kicked off a grueling rebuild that eventually culminated in this 2026 Premier League return. And that 2004 team wasn't just any team. They were the Invincibles, Arsene Wenger's legendary squad that went the entire league campaign completely unbeaten. It was a monumental achievement. But for 22 years, the shadow of the Invincibles served this weird dual purpose. On one hand, sure, it was an immense badge of pride for the supporters. But on the other, it was a constantly lingering, pretty painful reminder of exactly how long the wait for domestic glory had actually become. So the crucial point is how this drought was finally broken. Enter Mikel Arteta. When he took over the club in December 2019, he inherited a team that had fundamentally lost its way. And this was no quick fix. It was a slow, incredibly deliberate, and let's be honest, often frustrating rebuild. He dismantled and reassembled the squad, totally transformed the culture, and forged a brand new, resilient mentality through those years of hard work and near misses. And what makes this payoff so uniquely poetic is that Arteta actually won the league as an Arsenal player back in that 2004 season. There's a sentiment going around that I think perfectly captures the emotional weight of this weekend. Not just a trophy, a return. When you really let that sink in, you realize exactly why losing in Budapest didn't stop the parade in London. The fans who had celebrated that 2004 title as wide-eyed kids, they were now out on the streets on Sunday, watching this victory with their very own kids by their side. It was the closing of a generational loop that had just been left open way too long. And man, the sheer physical footprint of this return was staggering. The open-top bus parade kicked off at the Emirates Stadium, navigated a massive 5.6-mile route right through the beating heart of Islington, and then made its way back. It brought the entire city to a complete standstill. Seriously, streets that were dead silent at midnight were completely unrecognizable by midday. We're talking a sea of red and white flags stretching absolutely as far as the eye could see, flares lighting up the sky, and chants that have been held in for 22 years echoing louder than ever before. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the initial expectations were just utterly shattered. Organizers originally estimated a really respectable crowd, around 500,000 people. Well, reality completely destroyed those estimates. The numbers literally doubled, hitting up to 1 million fans. That right there is the stark visual definition of a fan base starved for a championship, completely ready to celebrate no matter what. Right at the epicenter of this million-person sea of humanity was Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard lifting that Premier League trophy. And the roar that went with that lift literally shook North London to its foundations. Just to give you some vital perspective on this record, no Premier League club has ever drawn a crowd of this massive scale for a domestic championship parade. Not Manchester City during their historic treble seasons, not even Liverpool after their massive 2020 title. This record belongs entirely to Arsenal. Let's move to the next piece of the puzzle and see how this builds, because we really have to broaden our lens here. This story isn't just about the men's team. This mega event was actually a dual triumph. The celebration proudly featured the Arsenal women's team as well. Just a day prior, while the men were battling it out in Budapest, the Arsenal women were over in Lisbon achieving absolute greatness. They won the UEFA Women's Champions League, taking down Barcelona 1-0, with their captain Kim Little lifting the trophy. That marked the club's first European women's title in 18 long years. So what did we get? 2 incredible trophies, celebrated in one unified parade. Both sets of players, the men and the women, celebrating together on the exact same open-top bus. These images broadcast such a clear, powerful message. This is an extraordinary football club firing on every single cylinder right now. They're leading English football on both domestic and European fronts, deeply united in their phenomenal success. Which brings us right back to the shadow of the Men's Champions League final defeat. When you look at that sea of 1 million supporters, you realize the undeniable truth behind this quote. That is not a consolation. That is a statement. Those fans didn't show up in record-breaking numbers just to pat the players on the back and make them feel better about losing to PSG. No way. They showed up as the ultimate declaration of unwavering loyalty. They were there to celebrate a monumental domestic achievement, 22 years in the making. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. When a club can draw 1 million fans onto the streets the very morning after a devastating European heartbreak, what does that really tell us about the true meaning of loyalty in football? It's a pretty powerful reflection on Arsenal's immense 22-year redemption story, that incredibly deep bond between a city and its club, and the undeniable emotional power of the beautiful game. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Think about that question and keep learning.